if I was to take a guess, I would say that writer and director of Longlegs, Oz Perkins, hates serial killers. But he also loves serial killer movies, and I think this movie is the culmination of those feelings. Oz has sort of set out to say, don't worship these people. There is nothing awesome or clever about them. They're fucking sad, pathetic people. And I love that. I honestly love that. Like, we're at a time where we have these really weird hard-ons for serial killer like culture and media. You know, there's a shit ton of documentaries on Netflix. There's a bunch of movies that sort of they do seem like worshipping these serial killers. You know, like people are in love with Ted Bundy and people call Richard Ramirez, hot and all. It's weird. And Perkins has sort of realized that in movies like Silence of the Lambs or Seven or Zodiac, the serial killers in those movies seem almost godlike with their brains and ability, right? Like Hannibal Lecter he can do basically anything. Buffalo Bill's good. Jane Doe. He flips the script on that in Longlegs. He says, look at this fucking guy. Like, look at this guy. He's just a weird, embarrassing man. He's got no redeeming features. Like, he's a fucking mess. Don't love this guy. Like, I feel like that is the underlying theme of Longlegs. And after dwelling on this movie for a couple of days, I think it's crazy that more serial killer movies don't do that. Like, there is a scene in a hardware store in this movie that illustrates that concept perfectly. And if you've seen Longlegs, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's brilliant. Like, they're not impressive men. You know what I mean? They're these weird, egotistical pieces of shit. And I'm all about Oz Perkins, like, bringing that to the light. Like, true crime sort of weirds me out. Especially when people are making money off it or making merch or podcasts or documentaries about, true crimes that have occurred. Like, people have been horribly killed or tortured or whatever. I think it's really gross. However, I'm also very self-reflective, and I think that, like, I do feel a pang of guilt because I love serial killer movies. I love Seven. I love Zodiac. I love Memories of a Murder. And this movie made me sit in those feelings for a while. So, that's what good movies do. They make you think. Like, this movie isn't a perfect movie, but I do think it's extremely clever, artistic, and well made. And I do think you'll like it the more you think about it. Like, now Nick Cage is the fucking man. I will not have any anti-Nick Cage rhetoric on my channel. The man's a horror gem. He's fucking great in this. He goes big for Nick Cage. You know what I mean? Like, it's a huge performance. He's wild. He's unhinged. And his performance is one of my favorite things about this film. He's probably more recognizable in Face Off than he is in this film, to be honest. But the reason it works so well is because the marketing of this movie was brilliant. They didn't give anything away. So we're all in the movies hoping to see a glimpse of Nick Cage. Finally, horror marketing done right. Other horror marketing teams should take a leaf out of Neon's book, because I'm so sick of having to avoid trailers because I don't want them spoiled. I know there is like a balance between, getting people enticed and giving shit away. But I hate it when a movie gives away the plot before you've seen it. Abigail. But this is fucking great. Like, this, they hit everything. I didn't know what Nick Cage felt like, looked like. I didn't know anything about his character. And when I saw him, I was like, yes, I'm in. I'm so in. They even made like a 90s true crime style website, which I'll link below. It's fucking good. It's wild. It's a real throwback site, and it's like it's gone in the Wayback Machine. It's really good. So Longlegs marketing 10 out of 10. And the fact that Oz Perkins made this. He made The Blackcoat's Daughter. He made Gretel and Hansel, which I haven't seen, but is apparently a really good horror fantasy, which is up my alley. I loved The Blackcoat's Daughter, though. And Oz grew... He's had a pretty wild life. Like, if you didn't know, this is Oz in Legally Blonde. And this is Oz's dad. Yeah. His dad is one of the most iconic cinematic serial killers of all time. So, the man grew up in the horror universe, and it's probably why he's got such a good knack for it. So that combined with the marketing and the attachment of Nick Cage and Maika Monroe, I went in ready to be absolutely flatlined by this movie. Like, this is my number one anticipated film of the year. I think it is for a lot of people. And is it going to be the scariest film of 2024? Unfortunately not. It's probably the most unsettling movie of 2024, but it's not it's not the scariest. Don't believe all that. Like, the marketing campaign is fucking brilliant. Do not go in expecting the next Hereditary. Do not go in expecting, the scariest film you've ever seen. And that actually worries me because I was like, fuck, the marketing's so good in this film, it might end up hurting it because people are going in expecting all this craziness. I guess if it makes money, though, it doesn't matter. But, it's a really good film. This is a really, really, really good film. It's just not a 10 out of 10 film. The best way to sum up how I think most things will go in this, like how most people will find this film, when the credits roll, the person in front of me turned to their partner and said, "What a fucking awesome movie." The person behind me said, "That's 2 hours of my life I'll never get back." Most people will be one of those two, right? It's going to have almost Skinamarink levels of polarity, I believe. Which, fine. At least people are talking about it because I thought it was great. Caveat to that, though. Maika Monroe, Nick Cage, Alicia Witt. It's not a 10 out of 10 film. They give 10 out of 10 performances. But there are some minor plot quibbles and some execution of the ending that did detract from the whole package for me. That being said, Oz Perkins, he set out to make an homage to Silence of the Lambs. He nailed the brief. It feels like it could have been made in the 90s alongside Silence of the Lambs. I just wanted it to be a bit more policey. I know that, which is you'll never hear me say that in real life, but I just wanted more policey. I wanted more police work. I wanted to be investigated a bit more. Longlegs follows FBI agent Lee Harker as she's put on the case of a mysterious serial killer called Longlegs who seems to wipe out entire families on the birthdays of their youngest daughter. It's really weird. It's a weird modus operandi, but that is what it is. Somehow the killer doesn't leave any trace, but thankfully Harker has a supernatural ability for intuition and pattern recognition, so she's able to progress the case forward. Unfortunately, by doing that, it puts her square in the line of sight of Longlegs, and this movie is just about trying to nail who the killer is, where it is. It's a fucking serial killer flick. What the fuck is going on? That is what they're trying to find in this movie. This movie it's not scary, but it is fucking unsettling. The entire time, you feel like you're being watched. It is weirdly voyeuristic. There's no great music crescendos. There's almost really no assistance from the score, except for some banging T-Rex songs. Oz is very happy to let you miss stuff if you don't look too closely. If you miss something, he's like, I don't give a fuck. That's on you. Which is kind of cool. Its sound design and the way it's shot, he mixes up aspect ratios quite a lot. And there's a lot of wide front-facing camera angles so that, the character is such a small part of the actual screen real estate, and there's so much negative space that you are looking for clues. You're looking, is something going to walk up? It's sort of like The Strangers, there's going to be a guy standing in the background. That is what he's relying on to make this film unsettling. You will constantly be checking the negative space for danger. I spent the entire time watching this movie with like a dread will be thrown. I guarantee you, everyone's throwing the term dread about this film because it is. It does instill a sense of dread. It's It's almost dreamlike in its uncomfortability. It is. It is really quite creepy. But that doesn't like. It is a slow burn, but shit happens in this. I know people were like, "Oh, I've seen reviews online of people saying, oh, nothing happened in this film." Something like multiple drastic things happen in this film. They just don't highlight them with like a big musical swell or anything like that, right? Like some pretty crazy shit happens pretty quickly in this film. There's a crazy almost opening scene. There are also some really tense scenes. One scene involves Maika Monroe's character in a cabin. I did not realize this while it was going on, but after it was done, my cheek was sore because I was chewing the inside of it while I was watching. And surprisingly, despite the fact that it is so creepy and weird and dreamlike and disturbing, it's also pretty fucking funny. And that is intentional. Like, Oz has gone out of his way to say, you guys all think this film is weird and creepy and scary. I was trying to make a somewhat tongue-in-cheek, funny serial killer film. And the humor's really good in this. There are some funny, laugh-out-loud bits in this movie. And when you finally see Nick Cage's Longlegs, yes, he's disturbing to look at. Yes, he's creepy and he's got these weird mannerisms. It's very clear that he's a fucking loser, though. Like, he's just... Nick plays him as just this sad, creepy... He almost looks like a washed-up pub musician or something. You know what I mean? Like, he could have been in a glam metal cover band that is just not doing well. Maika Monroe as Lee Harker, she's so good. She might be my favorite horror actress at the moment. She's so good. She's far more analytical and less personable than Jodie Foster's Clarice Starling. And that worried me at first because we've been sold that this is going to somewhat be like Silence of the Lambs. So I think most people are going to go in expecting Clarice. And I was worried because I was like, oh, fuck, am I not going to like this lady because she's not as emotional as Clarice? Thankfully, she nails it. Like, they nail it. She acts accordingly and logically in all situations. She's not made of iron. She's a bit scared. She's a bit frail. She's fucking incredibly awkward. She's so incredibly awkward. It just works. It's really good. What I also like is she's really weird. She's obviously got like social anxiety or, but they didn't rely on making her story about like trauma, or they didn't give her some weird OCD tick or some, you know what I mean? Sometimes they can overdo that stuff. They didn't do that to try and make her different to Clarice Starling. They were just like, no, she's just weird. She's just going around doing weird shit. She's just a weird character. Fucking Maika Monroe absolutely nailed it. Alicia Witt, who plays Lee Harker's mum, I was not expecting the level of acting fuckery that she was going to bring to the table in this film. She absolutely nailed it. She's so good. I was not expecting how good she was going to be in this movie. Her whole look, her mannerisms, everything just creeped me right the fuck out. Now, the direction this movie takes is a big part of the reason why it didn't get a perfect score from me. When you do a police serial killer film, right, part of the reason I like them, or why I think they work really well, is because you get to be part of the crime solving, right? Like, I like that you get to see how the crime's solved. You sort of feel like you're in the room with the characters as they're discussing theories and all that sort of shit. Like in Seven, Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman, there's a lot of back and forth there. Even, and so any crime procedural, usually you have back and forth. People got theories. We're trying to work out which one fits best. That sort of shit. Harker's so good and so intuitive in this that she just sort of solves shit herself and then goes to her boss and says, here's the answer. And then he goes, okay, cool, let's move on that. And it just takes a bit of the fun out of the crime solving bits, right? Like, it is literally just her going like, okay, yep, here's the puzzle, solved. And they go, cool, next puzzle. You know what I mean? It didn't feel like I had to work hard for the puzzles. I know, because she's just brilliant. She just knew all the thing, knew everything, done, sorted. There was no guesswork, and there was also no conflict between the team. Everyone just went. She was a rookie, but everyone just went along with what she said, and I thought that was a bit odd. There's also some plot holes. If you stew on this, if you are meticulous, if you're like one of the red thread corkboard people, you will find plot holes in this pretty easily. So if you need everything explained, you're going to struggle with this one, I think. You're probably not going to like where it ends up. This is one of the few films, it's quite long, but I actually would have loved it to be about 30 minutes longer, because I liked sort of where the characters ended up, but I just wanted more explanations. I wanted, like, what happens next? What's going on? Like, is that it? Is that all we get? So I would have weirdly loved it to be longer. Obviously, I would have loved more Nick Cage in it too, but I want more Nick Cage in everything. I want fucking more Nick Cage in Bluey. I don't put Nick Cage everywhere. I love him. But it just felt like the mystery rushed past too quickly. I also feel like like I said before, a lot of people are going to think that nothing happened in this movie. Lots of stuff does happen in this movie. It just, once again, there's no big score changes. There's no big changes in film style. There's no big, there's not a big fucking stamp on every major plot point that happens. So it feels like you've just been watching everyone go day to day. There's no like peaks and valleys. It's just constant dread, constant creepiness the entire time. So that can get a bit like, oh, nothing happened. Well, yes, something did happen. It just didn't do that. It did more like creepy dread all the way through. This is an homage to 90s serial killer flicks. Seven, Silence of the Lambs, early noughts if you want to count Zodiac. If you like that sort of stuff, this is easily worth your time. Like, I shouldn't have to sell you on this. Oz basically said, we're trying to make a love letter to Silence of the Lambs. If you like Silence of the Lambs, go in. There's a lot to like about this. It's definitely worth your time. It feels like it could have been made in that time period, and it easily slots in with like the serial killer canon cinematic universe, So, worth your time if you like serial killer films. Recommend watching this if you love Nick Cage. I fucking love Nick Cage. He's good in everything. I love him. Yes, he's been in some terrible movies, but I've never been like, who wasn't good in that movie? Nick Cage. He's fucking wild. He does wild shit. Go watch The Trust with Elijah Wood. He's great in it. It's just, I love him. I love him so much. If you want to support Maika Monroe's meteoric rise to horror cinema deity, and she deserves it, this is a good one to go in. She's doing some of her best work in this. If you like serial killer flicks, Silence of the Lambs, any of David Fincher's movies, go in on this one. If you like Oz Perkins' other films, Blackcoat's Daughter, Gretel and Hansel, the Blackcoat's Daughter, this is probably better than the Blackcoat's Daughter, although I love the setup of the Blackcoat's Daughter more than this one. So if you have seen that and you liked it, you'll probably like this one. Oz, he's got a style. You know it when you see it. I do not recommend watching this, however, if you hate serial killer films. If you hate serial killer films, especially like abstract ones, don't go in. This is a weird one. If you hate Nick Cage, how fucking dare you? I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. I love Nick Cage, he's the man, but I get that some people are like, he's too crazy. I get it. Nick Cage is at his craziest in this. If you hate slow burns, if you require everything to be wrapped up in a neat little package, if you require all the mysteries to be solved, do not go in on this one. This will not be satisfying for you. The ending will not be satisfying for you. It goes to a place that most people don't expect, and it doesn't spell it out for you. That being said, I really love this movie, right? Like, it wasn't the 10 out of 10 I was hoping for and expecting, but it's still like an 8.5 to a 9 for me, If you like this movie and you want another dark slow burn and you somehow haven't seen it, The Blackcoat's Daughter, it's by Oz Perkins, it has Emma Roberts in it, it's fucking brilliant. It's about two girls at a boarding school over winter, they're like sort of left there over winter, and they have to sort of deal with these supernatural happenings. Super dark, super fucked up, super brilliant. Oz Perkins is it's so good. It's really good. The Blackcoat's Daughter. I don't think many people know about it. It's awesome. I think it's 2015. Go see that one if you like this one. If you like this one, but you want to see a more comedic serial killer film, The House That Jack Built, and people are going to be like, dude, that's not comedic. It shows you the dickishness of serial killers really well, though, right? Like, Jack in it it's basically shot, the entire thing is shot from the perspective of a serial killer going across a killing spree in America. It shows you how fucking pathetic these guys are. You know, like, Jack's a sad, fucking egotistical piece of shit, and it's one of the films that really goes like, hey, don't worship these guys. Look, they're just men. They bleed. They're just weak, feeble men, and The House That Jack Built really illustrates that well. You know, he's not a brain box. He's not, you know, he thinks he is, but shit goes wrong for him. It's really good, The House That Jack Built, but it is really dark and disturbing, okay? So, be warned, but Matt Dillon is fucking brilliant in it. Matt Dillon is absolutely brilliant in it. As always, thanks for watching. I hope to see you next week for another review. Nick, if you are listening to this, go for that run, man. You're the fucking... Do it. You can do it. I believe in you. Peace.